Um,
Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show.
Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking.
So yeah, thanks everyone for joining. And today I have Jessie Bolton joining today. Jessie's a friend of mine from the local community. We met each other through the North Texas ISSA conference. And I think probably the first time we met was during one of the events, the Hack the Box events that was hosted by Divergent Academy and the North Texas ISSA. I believe that was the first time we'd actually met, I believe.
Well, I saw you on stage. A couple years ago at a conference. So I wanted to talk to you, but too many people were in line. So I'm glad we met.
Well, yeah. Which conference was that? Was that the North Texas ISSA conference?
It was one in Dallas at House of Blues.
Oh yeah, FutureCon. Yeah, that was. Yeah, it was last year, the first time that I spoke at FutureCon.
Nice. Well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and thanks for joining. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're super busy, and for those that don't know Jessie, she does a lot of mentoring for the community. She does recruiting, and she's one of those kind of recruiters that you really want to look for, that goes beyond blasting people with jobs, going out on LinkedIn and sending all these jobs out, not even looking at people's profiles to see if that fits them or not, and really taking the effort to understand what people are doing, the jobs that they're best for them, and just really offering above and beyond what really, recruiting should be. And she's also, what is your role with the North Texas ISSA now? You're the VP.
Yeah. Well, let's hope so. Hope so in 2024. Yep, that's the plan.
Well, that's awesome. So yeah, Jessie does a lot of stuff for the community, and excited to have her on here, take time out of her busy schedule. So why don't you kind of introduce yourself and tell your guests about you and what you do?
Awesome. Thank you, Phil, for having me. I admire you, by the way. I'm so glad we're friends. And
thank you. Same.
You've done a lot for the community yourself. So little old me coming on here, I'm very excited. So my background, I started off IT recruiting back in the day. And I learned quite a bit over the 3 years before I started Bolt Resources. So Bolt is a cyber staffing and recruiting firm, but also workforce development, coaching, everything from how do I get into cyber to I need a job, and also CISO, search and services, all that I aspired for Bolt to be is finally coming to fruition over the past 5 years. Instead of starting with, recruiting and staffing right away, I really wanted to focus on the cyber workforce. I started Bolt to put the workforce first and advocate for them. And, I built this community and, via ISSA, ISC Square, Divergence Academy, and all these partnerships. And now I have a lovely relationship with the workforce, and we're moving on to doing some stuff such as apprenticeships and building relationships with, national affiliates and locally. And we're everything cyber workforce.
Very cool. So how long have you been in that type of role?
As a recruiter or with Bolt?
As a recruiter, just kind of how, as a recruiter and then Bolt, how did that work?
So I would say about 10 years now. And so IT recruiting. And then I've jumped around a little bit early on in my career. So the first year, the old school way of recruiting, or at least the way I learned, was taking up the phone constantly and getting on the phone with the candidate, with with the candidate. We would have like competitions and who could call the most candidates and get them submitted to the client. My boss at the time, which I still love him, he wanted us on the phone and off the phone very quickly. And so I didn't like that too much. I ended up being on the phone a little bit too long with the candidate. And I remember also wanting to quit every day my first year of IT recruiting because I was looking at these resumes and what the heck, I didn't know what I was looking at. And, what was a systems engineer, Windows versus Linux? What the heck is that? And then software development, Java versus .NET. And it was overwhelming. All I wanted to do was help people. And I was told by a friend, don't say that during the interview when you're trying to get a recruiter job. It's about money. It's about money. But anyway, I ended up leaving to go to another company. And then another year later, I left again. Or no, I was fired. Bam. I hope he's listening. I know who you are. Yeah, I was fired from the second job. And I'll get into that. I'm happy to. But I thought, okay, what's going on here? I was good at recruiting, but I did truly want to help people. So I aspired to start a company. After a couple, I loved what I did, and I was good, but I could be better if I did it on my own and kind of put a little twist to it.
Yeah, it seems like too many times that some recruiting firms approach things like a fast food approach, like McDonald's. They're just trying to do a lot of volume and it's not quality. Like you take some of the nicer restaurants where the more quality goes into a good service, it's
Mhm.
a lot better experience. So that's great. And I know as far as like myself, the recruiters that I've experienced, because like I said, you get spammed by recruiters all the time that they don't even look at and you can see what they're doing. It's basically a sales approach. You're
Yeah.
trying to connect with as many people as you can, and hopefully you'll get some candidates instead of really looking at looking at their LinkedIn profile to see what they're doing or ask for a resume to kind of figure out what kind of jobs they're looking for. And so those, recruiters like yourself are the ones that I gravitate more towards.
Yes. Well, it's I did that once upon a time, and there's so much to be done. What a lot of recruiting agencies are doing, they're accommodating the client, and it's about speed and moving fast. But I believe in more of not, I guess it's quality over quantity, not just, let me slam all these resumes. I want to pick 2 or 3 really good ones for the client and also make sure it's a good fit for the candidate. So what I'll do in that process, I don't like mass emailing, but it does make things kind of move quicker. I prefer more one-on-one, just get to know who I'm talking to, even if it's via LinkedIn. But I'll start the conversation really getting to know who the candidate is. What do they even want to do? Why do they do it? I ask why a lot, and I don't even get to really the job until I get to know them a little bit during that call.
That's good. And I would imagine your experience recruiting that way, you probably get a lot more return customers, not only the business side, but as far as the people looking for jobs.
It does seem that way, but I'm not. What I really focus on is so being in cybersecurity. When I first started Bolt, I was determined to learn what cybersecurity even was. During COVID, I would wake up early morning. I'm talking 4 in the morning, 5 o'clock. Spend time reading, go into every resource I can, and I was on a webinar almost every day, a few a week, trying to learn it. And then I took that and what the gap was all about, why, I was reading the reports and I was trying to I had one person, JP Hill, who saw me at a conference, and he said, what are you doing? Why are you here? Like, recruiters don't come here. And I said, cuz, I'm trying to, I want to know what this is all about. And I would sit at the front of a conference and just take notes. And it was all so I could bring that value to the workforce, to the candidates. So it's very mission and purpose driven, what I'm doing, and it doesn't make me any better than the other recruiters. I would encourage and my goal is to turn the whole recruiting industry upside down, inside out in cyber, and wake people up to, hey, we're dealing with people. These aren't numbers and metrics, which are very important, but we got to really get to know what we're talking about and try to bring value more than get, without asking for something in return, and look out for the candidate.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, and I think that's one of the things too, for recruiters that don't go to the different local cybersecurity meetings or the conferences. You're really missing out on a networking opportunity, because one of the things I always tell people that I mentor, former students, that if you want to get a job, you need to network. And so if you're a recruiter, we've had, just knowing you from North Texas ISSA, and I've known some other recruiters that came to Dallas Hackers Association. They were part of the community, and people see these people like yourself attending these conferences and workshops and these different meetings, and see that you care more about that than just a job. At least you're caring enough to learn about the roles. You're caring enough to connect with the people. And for anyone, hiring managers, if you're having a hard time finding people, then of course you need to use people like Jessie to help them out. But at the same time too, if maybe your budget prohibits that and you're trying to find people, you have a hard time finding talent, you need to be going to the local cybersecurity meetings and conferences. That's the best place to meet talent. If you're part of the community and people know that, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to find quality candidates.
Right, right. Well, there's an interesting point there. I think a lot of industries across the board, they're still trying to figure out the roles, which creates a lot of confusion for job descriptions and what are you recruiting for, and how do you attract talent, retain talent, all of this. But where do we begin? And I think going to those conferences, you're able to see in real time what the issues are, learn about the actual cybersecurity, the tools, the systems, and cloud, and all these terms that I'm going to sound ignorant if I try to list them, but I am very familiar and I can speak it in a conversation. But I'm there, and instead of selling services, I'm really there to retain information and bring it back and to connect with everyone. But I'm also behind the scenes, I'm working on job descriptions. I don't post job descriptions on purpose because it just adds to the chaos going on right now. I'm working with NICE and looking at their workforce framework, which they're improving upon very quickly. But I'm looking at that so I can go to the hiring managers, or they can come to me and say, hey, I don't know what this role really is. A lot of times they're putting 5 different role jobs under one title, and that's creating a problem. I want to help at a higher level, help them create more quality job descriptions, but figure out, I guess I'm getting lost here. It's more what's happening is HR or a recruiter is writing a job description, not understanding how everything connects. That's confusing the candidate, and it just kind of a crazy cycle. So yeah, that I think if we understand things at a higher level and inside out, it could help us as an industry.
Yeah, that's some very good points there. Having the proper job description, because I was a red team lead at a company and I was hiring for a red teamer in India, and red teamers are different than pen testers. It's a different role, some of the same skills, but I was getting all these web app pen testing roles or resumes, and that kind of makes sense too, because there's a lot of web app pen testers in India. That's work that's really easily done remotely. I was getting all these resumes, then I went back and looked at the job description, and there wasn't things listed in it like Active Directory or Windows, or network pen testing, because if you have that kind of background, it's more conducive to being a red teamer or social engineering experience. So I went back, rewrote the job description and posted it, and started getting candidates, and actually found someone, because we were looking for months and couldn't find anyone. Updated the job description, and we had a lot more luck. So what you're saying there is true. And I think from the hiring perspective, you're intimidating candidates when you see this laundry list of requirements. Sometimes they're just hunting for unicorns, because you're not going to find. One of the craziest things I saw in my sysadmin days is I saw a job one time that they were looking for someone that was an Oracle database administrator a Cisco expert, plus like a system administrator. Those are 3 different roles, and they're looking for the same person, this one person do all of it. And I don't think the pay was that high either for all
Right.
those different roles.
Oh, there's so much. We could just talk about job descriptions. I think that it's very common for what we're dealing with. So let me start with just recent data coming out. For every 100 jobs, there's only about 60 to 70 that are actually qualified in the cyber workforce. That's a huge gap. But what I'm interested in knowing is it is what they're posting turning off candidates? I don't think so. I think what there's such a desperation. We have mid-level and senior to CISO level applying for jobs and they're not getting callbacks. We have a lot of entry level, I would say thousands coming out of college or leaving their current industry and specialty and trying to get into cyber. They're applying for entry level jobs that aren't really entry level. So there's there's several issues with that, right? And how do we solve that? We can write the best job description, but I mean, we're not, what's happening on the employer side, the hiring side, that we're not able to find those candidates because they're out there. I know 'em.
So yeah, I know the interesting example I like to share with people when it comes to the networking piece was back in 2017, I guess it was. I was looking to get out of consulting because I would be gone from home 3 or 4 weeks at a time doing pen tests at customer sites. And I got tired of all the travel. So I'd met someone at a local OWASP meeting, the Dallas OWASP chapter, that
Mhm.
worked for US Bank. And they said they're hiring. We introduced ourselves. We talked to each other. sent him my resume. He got it to the hiring manager. And within a week or less, I had a job interview. 2 weeks, I had a job offer. Same
Mm.
time I applied at Bank of America, the normal way you go through their application system, the job opening, similar jobs, I was more qualified for the role. I applied, but I didn't hear back from them until like a year later about a job.
Wow.
And so
Well,
yeah.
well, there's a couple things that happen though in that process, and recruiters only have so many hours during the day, and there's a whole lot that goes in on the other side. And I think that what it is, and I did this too, is so many people are applying for that job, and we get, let's say, 500 resumes, or the employer, the hiring manager gets 500 resumes. They're going to go to the top. It's kind of timing, and then if that job is put on hold, if they didn't talk to those 400, 500 candidates, well, they're going to be put into the database and referenced later or called later. um, and recruiters don't have control over that, those clients who kind of go dark or no longer. It happens all the time. The job just closes. Oh, we're done, or we filled it internally. There's so much there, and it sucks because we have to go back and tell the candidate that, or we don't. We go dark on the candidate. A lot of recruiters. I'm saying we just because I'm recruiting, but so you talked about networking. I wanted to get back to that. So let me know when. That's so key.
Sure. Let's go ahead and we can go back to the
Yeah.
network.
Um, so networking as a recruiter is important, but also the candidate. I think that's number one in how to. There's so many people trying to get into the industry or that have already been in, and they're just not. They're getting laid off. For instance, right now, like during this crazy time we're in, they're coming out of the workforce having worked for 10 plus years, and under they don't quite understand that networking is so important. It's become really like the number one, I believe, more than your resume, your LinkedIn, what you're doing online, and in tandem with how many groups you're a part of, where are you going every week, are you active in the community. That to me is outshining a resume. Your resume or your one click apply on LinkedIn is just not going to build momentum like going in person. So I just wanted to emphasize that it's very important.
So as far as people trying to get their resumes seen, trying to get in front of these hiring managers, what would you recommend?
Bring your resume to a ISSA lunch and learn every third Thursday here in Dallas. Um, but that's not everyone's trying to get a job, right? So how do you stand out? It's building your personal brand. So what I would recommend in your resume, yes, it's important, but I make sure your LinkedIn message matches your resume, and then start building your network online, asking more questions, connecting with hiring managers directly. You can message them, but also start following them on LinkedIn. That's to me a great strategy. There's also forums, plenty of groups that you can join, depending on what in cybersecurity you're doing, or what pathway you plan on taking. ISSA, ISC Square, DFW. A lot of times, if you sign up to take a certification, they have these internal groups. Or if you join the ISSA, we have our membership portal you get access to. There's so many different avenues to network, and whenever you get a hold of a hiring manager or a recruiter, they're going to ask you send your resume. So, but you want to make that connection first.
Yeah, I really like that the branding thing because that is so huge. I mean, because you could be the best in the world, but if no one knows about you or can find you, that doesn't matter.
Totally. Totally. It's what I tell everyone. It's not who you know anymore. It's who knows you. Who
Yes.
knows you? And how do you do that? And you don't have to be a Phil Wylie right off the bat, but you start little by little just connecting with more people. And what I've been noticing lately is candidates are becoming more active on LinkedIn and sharing more, or maybe they start a blog or what have you, but their network is only, this many. It's only a few hundred people. So they still have to, it can be intimidating or a little awkward to send a LinkedIn request, a connection request, but you do have something in common. You can ask a question. What I'll often tell them is, as long as you're bringing value, share your opinion, ask them what they think. Yeah. So there's a laundry list. It can be overwhelming.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because one of the things I like to describe now is, especially since the job market has been especially tough this year, all these companies
Yeah.
planning for recessions and they've cut so many people and it makes it a little bit harder to stand out. So you really have to focus more on the things like you're mentioning, the branding, the networking. But it's interesting now we're really in a time where used to it was only people that were actors or artists, graphics designers that needed portfolios, but it's like people that are working in cybersecurity need portfolios nowadays too.
Oh, that's a great point. So I've been starting to preach a little bit more on this in, just my, I guess, close friend group or cybersecurity group of folks. And I've talked to some folks at Divergence and things about this, but social networking, social selling. So I believe, and I'm predicting that more and more, maybe not this year, but the next 2 or 3, your social score is going to have a lot to do with you getting a job. So resumes, a piece of paper. I mean, how often are we really using paper? And then social media is such a awesome platform to build your credibility, exposure. So if we're going to kind of get lost in the competition as a candidate or someone who wants to move up in our careers, if we're not more active in utilizing social media, LinkedIn being number one, but also other avenues. Um, yeah, I think that your social score, your credibility, how you treat people, in managers too, by the way, employers, number one is culture, and candidates aren't leaving companies, right? They're leaving managers. I think that's another point. I won't go there unless I'm asked a question, but yeah, social score.
Yeah, that's very interesting you say that because I've heard them saying that that's kind of where credit was kind of going. Some other things that some of these other countries that there are using like social scoring, but just that's kind of an interesting idea. But as you mentioned, just building that brand, getting out there, and as far as like doing a portfolio, if someone has written some kind of security scripts or things like that, they can share it on a GitHub. If writing is your preferred method of content creation, then write articles on LinkedIn or Medium and share those.
Right.
And for people that are really shy, that don't really like public speaking, that's an easy way to do that, to build a following. And one example I like to share is I have a friend, Gabrielle B, out of Canada. It's interesting because how she's really grown. She speaks at conferences, so she does a lot of speaking, a lot of the similar activities. But the way she really grew her following is she posts helpful resources. So she's
Hmm.
a pen tester, so she's sharing all these resources about education, tools, and
Yeah.
puts these lists out on a weekly basis, consistently posting, and she's like over like 80,000 followers. A
Wow.
year ago, she was probably not even half of that, but just sharing information. So there, people are not comfortable with speaking or whatever. You can write, share resources.
That's a great point. You bring up introverts, or those who are shy. we I come across a lot of folks who aren't comfortable getting out there or going to their first conference. And I know for myself, I I when I first started my business and thought, okay, this is where I want Bolt resources to go, I first had to tap into who I am and what my strengths are, what am I good at, what comes naturally, and then build the courage to kind of step out there. And that is intimidating and it's scary, especially if you're a standalone and you're, trying to prove something to somebody, and then you're doubting yourself. I think our mindset has a lot to do with our success and how quickly we're going to reach that career goal or that next step. And so getting uncomfortable and deciding, okay, I'm going to be uncomfortable. This is something I have to do if I want to put myself out there and be known or get that job. It's a process, but yes, writing. When I started, it was weird to be posting. It wasn't comfortable, and yeah, I questioned myself and the whole imposter syndrome. Every time you're moving up, you're going to feel that, you know. But it gets easier, and you build that confidence, and you just keep going, and you become unstoppable. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole imposter syndrome thing, that I still run into that myself, but as long as I know that I'm putting out content that's helpful to people and they like it, then I'm okay with it.
Right.
But that's one of these things you just have to overcome. Sometimes you don't feel like you're good enough or whatever, but share it. I mean, we
Yeah.
underestimate what we know and what's valuable. I mean, one of the examples I share with people is maybe you've only been doing this for a year, maybe you're just getting into it, but share anyway. Because when I was teaching the class at Dallas College, I had students coming in, and a lot of the people your experience don't underestimate the people that are beginning, because they're going to run across things in their journey that you haven't seen yet, that's new, and we learn from each other. So people that are senior have an open mind, and people that are new, share. You're helping other people. Because one of the first things I did before I got into public speaking was I would share resources with other people, educational resources. Then it turned into teaching, and that's kind of where it started. So just sharing those resources. Don't let imposter syndrome hold you back. Share the information out there. You'll be surprised at how many people you're helping. And the cybersecurity community loves people that help. And so people build their brand. That's one of probably the biggest parts of my
Right.
brand, is helping others is part of my brand. It'll help you. The
Yeah.
cybersecurity community loves that.
Yeah, so a common theme here is value. We're bringing value. So in order to bring value, and I'm speaking to those who aren't yet building their personal brand, they're like, what the heck is that? Why do I have to do this? So it's it's being comfortable with and reminding yourself, hey, I have worth, I have something to bring to the industry. And even if it's just sharing your journey, you're still building that connection with your followers or the audience. And it is about just kind of humanizing the process here. It's not all about you. It's not all about, you know, what people can do for you. Try to tap into I guess that authenticity within, and just be real. I got more comfortable with that, and now I have some unpopular opinions I'm comfortable sharing. But at first, I had to keep reminding myself, okay, I know the material, and people have to. I want to help them. I do. I want to help them get where they're going. And yeah, if you're bringing value, it's going to be easier. If you're doing it for you, then yeah, it might not go
That's
as well.
that's a good point. And building a brand too. Some people will create these personas, but you have to be careful with that because if you're not
Personas.
on all the time, then it's going to be difficult. And sometimes people come up with controversial personas. Some people it works out. You look at some of these social media influencers, some of the streamers, they come out with they have these personas, but it's kind of like pro wrestling. So when you're out in public,
Yeah,
your fans see you, you have to be that character all the time. So that's
true.
one of the things I think spot on with being authentic and be yourself. People are going to like that better. If people sometimes see this persona, they seem to think you're phony, and that's not good.
Totally. Oh, that's a good point. So personas, I love that because I will say for my neurodivergent friends and those who are just not about, they prefer to be inside and not talking to people. I have a lot of those moments. And so I have an alter ego, and that's how I kind of created this my brand and move forward. And I tapped into I coach on this. It's really fun. We all like superheroes, some of us do, or maybe gaming or, whatever, whoever your favorite character is, you kind of tap into that. And Wonder Woman, I love her and I feel like I am her. Maybe I'm her sister, but I'm not going to tell everybody that. Or maybe I'm a special agent and I am on a mission, right? A secret mission. I have a crazy imagination, and I tap into that because what I would strongly encourage the workforce to do, or if you're struggling finding your next role, or you're doing great but you're kind of worried about where the market's going to go, then create, I guess the way you do that is to step into the role you want, whoever you want to become, whatever that position is, whatever who you aspire to be, then act it. Just start acting like it. And you'll be amazed. You'll start acting like it. If you start thinking about it, you start becoming it. And so, yeah, alter egos, personas, I think if they're genuine to who you are, can be very helpful.
Yeah, I agree. We have one question I wanted to go ahead and make sure to cover before we went on, and since it's still kind of relevant to the portfolio. So Jamil asked, as an ex graphic designer, I relate to bringing a portfolio. Now in cybersecurity, do you mean to bring a similar portfolio or advertising your projects in GitHub portfolio? So yeah, you're going to bring anything that you've done like on GitHub, your writing. Say like if you're a security researcher and you're finding CVEs, document that on your LinkedIn profile, because with CVEs, this is where you're finding like O days, you're finding vulnerabilities, and you've disclosed that to the company and you get a CVE number. You can put that on your LinkedIn profile under the publications, and you can put links to it. So there's actual proof. So any videos you're doing, if you're doing video walkthroughs of projects you're working on, any kind of CTFs, different vulnerable systems like on Try Hack Me or Hack the Box, do walkthroughs, that stuff, record videos. If you're shy of being on camera, you can just show the screen, but document this stuff, put it on your LinkedIn profile, because when a hiring manager sees your resume versus someone else, maybe you've got all the same certs and degree,
That's
but if they
right.
look at your portfolio and they see evidence that what you're learning and things that you've done, that could be a good selling point. I've seen people in our local community at our DC 214 group was a recent college grad. He was doing a presentation on malware analysis, or how to use malware or something. And a hiring manager from City was in the audience, saw his presentation and asked for his resume, and he got hired. He basically kind of did a technical interview unprompted by presenting at that meeting.
That's awesome. That exactly. So the you never know who's watching. I live by it, and I tell candidates this: you're always on an interview, especially when you're going to a conference. You never know who you're going to come across, and a lot of times hiring managers will interview on the spot, and there you have it. It's easy, but it's not. And they're hiring on those soft skills when you attend or even online, the way you present yourself and communicate and articulate and explain what you do with confidence and your passion. And they're hiring. If you're self-taught, if you have a portfolio, you can show them. And I know I go straight to it. If I see it on a resume or on a LinkedIn, I'm going straight to their links. And that alone is extremely valuable.
And yeah, I like that you brought up soft skills because, there's some people that are really technical, but they don't have the soft skills. I mean,
Mhm.
writing, communicating with people, sometimes it's just their people skills in general. So those are kind of things that managers are looking for. If they meet you at a conference, they see that you're good at communicating yourself, you got good people skills. Are you going to be easy to get along with? People are going to pick someone that is going to get along with others. Someone is passionate about wanting to work there, and it's not just a paycheck. Those are kind of things that kind of impress me.
Completely, completely. It's so for those who aren't familiar with soft skills, I attended a nice conference back this summer, and the chief people officer of CISA, she called them power skills, and really that's what they are. It's your ability to communicate and self-awareness, the confidence you project, how you assert yourself in the crowd, how you connect with people. Those are what managers are looking for. And I put out a survey today on LinkedIn, and I asked, what are the, I guess, skill set that hiring managers are looking for, and that's lacking in the workforce. And the answer, the common one is soft skills at 53%. And that's in the ISACA recent report, the 2023 report. Yeah, and it is. It's number one. So how do you grow soft skills? How do you do it? And it's by practice.
Yeah, that is very true because it's kind of interesting to see other people that, being in the field for a while and having going against the competition, seeing the people that are just don't have those soft skills. And I think it's really something we really have to work on nowadays because everyone's used to
Mhm.
texting. So you're not using complete sentences, you're using acronyms instead and emojis. And so you really have to get into, writing proper. And one of the biggest things that helped me was my English composition course that I took in college, because in high school I really didn't pay attention to it. But that was the best thing about going back to school was
Yeah.
the learning how to write properly. And that's been a huge help. So building those skills, getting used to people. So for people that are kind of introverted, one of the things I have to recommend too is I know it can be difficult, but one of the things, if you go into a crowd of people that are interested in the things you're interested in,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to relate. It's not as hard because I'm a very shy person, but if I get around people that we're interested in the same things, I'll talk for hours and it doesn't bother me. So just kind of give that a try. Go to some smaller meetings and get used to that and get used to talking to people to help kind of overcome that.
Right. And lunch and learn. I used to say lunch and learn. And, it's such a warm crowd, just group of leaders and people in the industry who want to help. And that's really the whole cybersecurity industry. So once you go a couple times, it gets a little bit easier. One thing I wanted to, gosh, I forgot. So ADHD and me, we're friends. Darn it. It just escaped me just like that. But connect with Jessie on LinkedIn. Yes, thank you. There was one thing I was going to bring up. Gosh, Phil, I forgot already. It was, I need to write it down. It's not going to come. Darn it. It was about soft skills. What were we going to the meetings? Shoot, carry on. I'll just wait. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, let's see. We had some questions. Let's go up here and see what someone had an interesting question here. Okay. Here's an interesting one. Someone asked, how prevalent are the ghost job postings, the ones where they're not really hiring, just building a pool of candidates?
Very. So recruiters might not like me, but I do have recruiter friends. I love y'all. But no, I think a lot of them are are uh, not, if they're posted by agencies. I believe some are real, but some jobs may go on hold and not be real anymore within that 30-day cycle on the job boards. But it's important for recruiters to do that too, so they can collect, and grow their talent pool. But I would prefer, as an industry, if we would be more transparent with that reality. I mean, it's true. And yeah, I think that this is what's creating a problem,
Yeah,
actually.
and I think you're a good example of the way to handle that. Network with people, get out and meet people.
Old
Then
school
you'll be able to
recruiting,
find, yeah, just get out there and
headhunting.
meet people, and you're going to have that without having to put these phony jobs up. Because for companies hiring, I mean, I know people are so desperate to get jobs that it may not hurt them that much, but honestly, I think you're going to turn away some good candidates possibly if you're doing those type of practices.
Absolutely. I think that's happening so much, and this is opening up a can of worms potentially. But in my opinion, I think with AI, and that's what I was going to bring up earlier, it can help with writing, but they're writing recruiters, hiring managers, HR, they're even, directors and VPs, they're going to chat GPT to write their job descriptions. And I think that is dangerous. And I also think that with it, you can program your AI and your, whatever job descriptions and keyword matches and such. It can create some bias, and you're skipping out on a lot of good talent by. I would strongly encourage this too. Call the candidate anyway. Start like stop looking for keywords and just call the candidate. I'm going to leave it at that because I'll go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, but very, very understanding. The whole thing with the chat GPT is interesting, but the thing is, even for when people want to create with it, you have to know something about the subject, because you can really figure out quickly that the person doesn't know the subject
Mhm.
well enough. Because it's even like coding, you have to know something about coding or a lot of trial and error to get that to work. So, I mean, you're just not going to be knowing nothing about programming and then turn around and try to write programs. So it's just like things that I use
Yeah.
for pen testing or writing. You have to know something about the subject, because I've even asked Chat GPT to write my bio before, because some of the things you make when imposter syndrome kind of affects you, you don't want to oversell yourself, but you don't want to undersell yourself, because I undersell myself too much. And I went into Chat GPT to write this bio, and it came up with some incorrect things. So, I mean, so you really be careful, and it sounded too boastful.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Very boastful. Um, what I with job descriptions, that's one thing. I want to get with resumes. It made me think about what you just said is like we don't want to be too boastful, but I do encourage candidates to put their interest in what they're good at on the resume. That's not necessarily technical or cyber skills related. Uh, Nowadays, managers are looking at that. And I don't know about recruiters. I know I am. I'm looking at what their hobbies are because that's going to be very telling. And you'd be surprised. I mean, we, as a cybersecurity workforce, it's very stressed. There's a lot of stress and a lot of mental health issues occurring, burnout, just feeling like there's no way out. There's so much that I don't know if we want to go there, but we have to have some sort of outlet. It can't be cyber all the time. It is. I know, Phil, I know you're you're thinking about cyber all the time, but
Yeah.
you have an outlet, right? You have a hobby. There's if it's Star Wars, not for you, but for some others, put it on there. Just we have to humanize ourselves. It's not just keywords and skills, you know?
Yes. Yeah, and you bring up a good point too. I think it's good to have the other, it's good to take breaks away from cyber and have things. If you enjoy the hobbies that you're doing in cyber, that's good. But one of the things I run into is not having hobbies outside of that.
Yes,
And sometimes you need to be able to get away from that. So what are
totally.
some recommendations you have for people to avoid burnout?
Oh man,
Uh, you know,
I'm glad you asked. So, a topic close to my heart is studying mental health the past few years and bringing that to the workforce in cybersecurity, especially. The numbers are really, really terrifying. How many folks are struggling with mental health, and that covers so many things, but we'll focus on burnout. Um, there's over 50% of the workforce right now, mid-level and above, that are looking to leave the cybersecurity industry in the next year or two. And that number is growing, looking at different reports. So ISSA came out with a new report. It's in there, over 80% are pretty, stressed, overwhelmed. And that's because they're wearing different hats. Their employers aren't, hiring. Well, I'm not going to go there. So back to your question, I suggest and I'll speak for myself. I have little spurts of, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Can I get through the next, month, 2, a year? It just, there's so much. And as we read cybersecurity news, it's like, will we ever catch up? and just getting pounded. So I think if it wasn't for my dog, I have a German Shepherd. I take him on a walk at least a mile. I have to work out. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, and I reserve that time for journaling, praying, reading, thinking. If we start proactively to our day, that really helps. Leaving that cushion. And maybe, a lot of us are parents or providers of our home. If we don't do that, we're going to be in reactive mode all day long. Or having some sort of routine in the evenings, or maybe during lunch, if we're working from home, leaving your space, getting outside and just feeling the breeze, the cool weather, what have you. And I think eating healthy, remembering to eat, exercise. I know this is really kind of standard, but it's a game changer. And then remembering the importance of having an inner circle and talking to somebody you can confide in. And it's very hard, if we're leaders and we're supposed to have it all together, but that's not reality. And it's okay to not have it all together and really having someone to talk to. I know you and I, Phil, have had some good conversations, just being able to be real, talk it out a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of circle of friends, Don Donzel is listening. He's a good friend of mine. We work together, and he used to run EHNet. He works for the Cyber Mentor, the TCM
Yeah.
Academy, and TCM Security. So yeah, that's a good point. Don has a lot of points in this. Don was on my very first episode talking about the hiatus he took. He just kind of took a break from the industry for like over a year, and just kind of, because being in community, he was going to conferences constantly and just so much into it. So the break from it really helped him. So when you mentioned, we got to have it all together sometimes, I think as leaders or some people that are a little older than some of the younger folks, we need to really show them that it's okay to, have feelings, to
Right.
not have it all together all the time, to be human, because I think we get too much of a Instagram lens of everything's perfect.
Right.
And I think people have a responsibility to share the good and the bad. I mean, there's some things you want to be careful what you're sharing on social media, because it can reflect badly on you. But when people share the good and the bad, the successes and the losses, they see, because without the losses and the bad times, then your successes are not that important. It's just kind of another thing. So it's kind
Absolutely.
of important to address and acknowledge both of those.
Right. And it's actually, just to add to that, adversity and challenges, we're going to go through those. So learning to kind of not sit with it, but accept that and share it, because it's overcoming those that create the character, and who we are, and it's part of us. So I think, like, being human, and also for employers or managers who are struggling to connect with or retain their staff and connect with them, I would strongly encourage connecting with each employee, and getting a little bit more personal with them. Just ask them how they're doing. Tap in, and if you have quiet employees, or your cyber team, or your 3-man team, 1-man team, tap into how they're doing. Because if they're too quiet, I would be a little concerned, because a lot of times they're coming to me and talking to me about moving. because of the manager. And yeah, because you get caught up in work, but it's important to connect internally.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Some of the best managers I had would have one-on-ones with all the employees, and one of the managers, we would sometimes talk for an hour,
Yeah.
and maybe 5 or 10 minutes may have been work related. It may have nothing been work related, just how's things going? Things are good, just to kind of get a level set of how, work is for you, and then just talk about personal stuff. So you really get to know those people better. And some people just aren't really good about coming out saying, this is what I want to do in my career path, but they get that comfort level with you as a leader, then you're able to help direct them and do a better job. And that's going to help retain employees. So
Totally.
as far as for hiring managers and stuff, just kind of to give them some tips, do you have any tips on how to retain employees?
Yes. I'm actually working with NICE, the directors are working groups on this very subject of talent retention and why people are leaving, and how do you get them to stay. And oftentimes it's not money as much as it is the connection, a feeling of, okay, my manager doesn't get it, um, or they're feeling like they don't have enough help. So it's burnout and overwhelm. But how do you fix that? And it's building a relationship with your staff, that's authentic and genuine and not forced. So take advantage of your performance review time and linger. Like, don't rush. Don't just do the standard, ask the standard questions. And then also, oh gosh, I would say that's number one. There's some things you can't control, but and team building isn't going to necessarily keep somebody there, but it's one-on-one. It's definitely one-on-one. And then hiring, hiring more. Um, and so that's going to go into another subject, but that would be number one across the board. Um, Recognizing, I guess, building your ability to be empathetic also, which is kind of connected to that as well. Um, yeah, empathy.
That's a very important point. Just to kind of see yourself in that person's shoes. We have to realize that because we're not all the same, and you may not understand that. Because one of the biggest things that's helped me is having connections with younger people. My 30-something-year-old daughter, I've learned so much from her about the younger generation, and then people from the community to understand those things that otherwise, if you didn't try to learn, you don't know. Get to understand those people better, people different than you, so you can help them out better because we don't all have the same experiences. So take a step into their shoes and just kind of see how they're doing things. Like you said, be empathetic, and you're going to be a lot better leader. You're going to be more trustworthy. If people have a good manager, there's loyalty. Sometimes people, because of
Mhm.
loyalty, will stick around because of that. Like you said earlier, people leave because managers, but people will stick around because of managers. And kind of my 2 cents worth on retaining employees is have a career path,
Yeah.
offer some type of training, keep their job interesting. If you can't promote someone to a different area, let them shadow people in other areas. That way they can kind of see what that's like and try to provide a path to them to eventually work into that role. Because too many cases, people have to switch jobs to get to do what they want to do.
That's another common theme is they're not able to move up, or there might be, some. There's a lot of folks that I know that are staying at their jobs that they want to leave because there's no room for upward mobility. But sometimes that's the manager not really. They don't want them to move because they're really doing great where they are, and that's going to create problems for management. Um, but you want your people to grow, and otherwise they will leave. And talks creating a culture that is safe and where they can flourish is huge. And then also understanding what their strengths are as an employee. There's assessments such as the Clifton Strengths Assessment. I would strongly encourage knowing your where they are, and also accommodations. It's not all about accommodating your employees, but it's very important to know them enough and accommodate where necessary.
Yeah,
What?
because we're too much in a world where that just had to share that comment from Cody. You know, diversity in day to day. That's a great quote. But yeah, we just really have to make people feel welcome and needed and valued, because too many cases, one of the things that we're kind of doing in all industries is they're really kind of turning the younger generation off to capitalism, and capitalism could be a good thing.
Mhm.
We need to practice ethical capitalism. Let
Right.
people know that they're important. It's not just about the dollar. We need to do a better job of that. So people feel like they're valued, they're cared about, and they're not just a number, an
Well
employee
said.
number. Yeah, we've got to get past that.
Completely. And that's what I mean when I talk about humanizing
Yes.
humans. We are, and this younger generation is full of ideas, and it's so disheartening when I hear them say, "Oh, they're this and they're that. Oh, they're entitled or what have you." Lazy. I don't know. I'm hearing some really negative things about Gen Zers, and I
Yeah.
don't like it. You
I
said
I don't
you
either.
learned from your daughter, and I learned from mine.
Yeah.
And shame on me for devaluing any, any young future professional. And so my heart is for them to, because we're making it worse. Like
Yeah.
we are making it worse. They need someone to believe in them and to mentor them, and speak some life into them. If we're sitting there, we become who we think we are or who others think we are. So if you want a better staff, then speak life into them. Focus on their strengths.
I totally
Show
agree, and there's
appreciation.
something that could be learned from them, because, generation I grew up in, if guys don't show their feelings, man up and all this stuff, and it was okay to make fun of people. That was just the norm. We're getting away from that. So people need to pay more attention to the younger folks, because they got it right. They're
Yep.
the things that were commonplace when I was younger is not, and it's good to get away from that way everyone's feeling included. Everyone feels comfortable, feels like part of the community, the workforce, or wherever the situation. I think we can learn a lot from them. So we're getting down to the last
Yeah.
few minutes of the show. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close out the episode?
I would just say, gosh, I love y'all. I want to encourage everyone more than anything to, if you're on a path and you're feeling defeated, keep going, keep going. It's not all about certifications. It's not all about one thing or the other. It just find balance, and remember that if it's meant to be, it's going to. You just do the work, stay consistent, and keep your head up, and you're going to get there. It's a process. Those entering into the field, and then those already there that are feeling exhausted. Connect with me. Call me. Come to the lunch and learn. Join ISSA. So yeah, I'm just going to stop there.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, and it was great chatting with you. And one of the things I like to do, part of the reason I do my podcast, not only sharing information, I like to share awesome people that I think people should know. And a lot of times I do that in the community. I'll introduce people that I think would be helpful for others to know. And so that's kind of includes you too. I think you're an awesome person, a good resource for people to know of and have. So thanks again for joining.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And if anybody out there is hiring and you need someone who knows cyber and where the workforce is actually there and ready, I have those people, and I want to connect you with the right people. But also, one more thing, podcast, Cyber Careers and Coffee. In January, look for the podcast. I am still working on recordings, and Phil, I would love to have you on the show.
Yeah, I'd love to join you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. Thanks everyone.
All right.
And we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to The Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wylie. Until next time.